Raewyn Hughes.
Well, good morning, and thank you for my ability to give my contribution here. I'm really picking up where Tony left off. I've got a question, and that question relates to the fact that this council has realised that the rebuilding of the new AMI stadium is not on everybody's popular list. And so
Understatement of the day.
So you've delayed it to 2025. I come to ask, where were we, the people of the inner suburbs, Linwood, Phillipstown, those who border on the southeast corner of the new anchor projects, where were they when consultation was incurred? It appears to me that the decision was made by Sarah and the council without any consultation.
Well, leave the council out of that.
Oh,
list.
council was out. Yeah. Okay, was made by Sarah and without any consultation, and so we're then having foisted upon us a new stadium, which, from my understanding, was something like 110 million, and I thought the existing. Pardon?
No, but that's our contribution. That's what's on our budget.
The council's contribution, is it? But the existing stadium now, I may be wrong on my figures here, could be repaired for 60 million.
Well, that's net of insurance, you know, and we still haven't settled our insurance. And if there's one asset that we've got a major dispute over, it is the stadium. Yeah.
So you need your 10 years to fight with the...
253 million.
253 million.
So you thought it was bad, but it's worse.
That's even worse stuff. Yes, Vicky, I totally understand. And I just sort of like to compare some of the other cities in New Zealand who've got stadiums in different places. And Wellington's out in the industrial area, you can get to it easily, it's not disturbing the neighbourhood, whereas people who live in near the Mount Smart Stadium in Auckland always have problems around parking and all the rest of it. Those who live beside the existing AMI stadium have bought a house knowing there was a stadium in their neighbourhood. You know, the one issue that I think is so vital for us is revitalising housing, and the southeast corner doesn't have housing in the same way that the northwest and the northeastern quarters have. And if the land is there, here's an opportunity to look at how to improve housing that could be affordable housing. It could start a movement, and there's still quite a bit of land tucked around that southeast corner where people may be encouraged to bring housing. And to say, comparison, I stay with my son in Wellington, I could walk to everywhere with close in central Wellington. You can't in Christchurch, well, you can, but you've got to have good legs. When we've got that inner centre, we're going to have a grass belt nearby, we're going to have parks nearby in that area. It just seems a waste to not use it for something like affordable housing. So can anyone ask me how we came to get the decision for the stadium?
Well, it was, Raf.
Just to clarify, I'm glad you asked that, because there's so many people come in here and think, so don't do this and you save X and it cuts rates, and that is not the case at all. So the stadium at the moment is in the budget for the years 2023 to 2025.
Yes.
The extra that we're budgeting for is 110 million, not 253. It's 110 plus a potential insurance payout of 143. Now, in the article recently, Civic said it could be repaired for 50. We don't agree with that.
All right.
And there are issues around who actually does the repair and who bears the risk. So it's not as straightforward, don't do that and you save X amount of money. That being the case, we could certainly look at not spending the 110 million, but it's out in the budget here, so it's not actually going to help us today.
Will the council at least consult, but once you start to get a clearer picture of who's paying what, because that's obviously still unresolved, will the council come and consult with the community as to whether they really want the stadium sited where the decision is at the moment?
And this is the other element that you're not aware of, is that the Crown has actually designated the land for the purpose, and under the Central City Recovery Plan and under the Central City Recovery Plan, there is nothing that we can put in our plans that is inconsistent with anything that's in the government's plan.
Yeah,
That's the effect of the blueprint and the location of the anchor
But that
projects.
can change.
But it can
That
change
can
by
change.
negotiation.
Yes.
Could it change?
Yes, I mean, that's
Yeah.
not certain to happen in that place.
So we have written to government,
Yes.
and we have asked to meet with them over a number of issues, not just the anchor projects, not just the cost share, not just the horizontal infrastructure, not just the land drainage recovery program, but a number of other issues that all flow directly from our earthquake experience and various agreements that were entered into with the previous council. So, I mean, it is hard because it is not a negotiation that can take place in the public arena, but the results of it should be, in my view, much more consultative, much more collaborative, and much more engaged in a way that the public are involved in the decisions about the recovery of their own city and where things are going to be rebuilt and when they're going to be rebuilt and what that means for the city. You know, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about convention centres and various other bits and pieces. The council doesn't have anything on its books, you know, so not doing the convention centre. We've heard people talk about the scale of it, that it's too big for our city. But we do need a convention centre. So saying no convention centre, but location and scale, yeah, that's the debate, rather than do we actually need somewhere where people can hold conventions. We're a host city. That's always been part of our history. We had a very successful convention centre before the earthquakes. So this is the debate that I would love us to be able to have. It's actually more of a conversation with our community, and I think the public are really up for that kind of conversation.
So it's really a national political issue.
Yeah, but it is also about trying to negotiate in a way, and maybe I haven't got the balance right, but I've always felt that negotiating on the front page of the newspaper isn't necessarily going to produce the best result for the city. So working behind the scenes, trying to get a good result. And I have to say that previous decisions, before we were elected, weren't always consulted with individual councillors. So individual councillors did not see the blueprint before, I think 2 days before it was publicly released. They did not see the terms of the cost share agreement until after we were elected. I remember sitting in this chamber, we had an informal, completely confidential meeting with all of the lawyers present. I remember Vicky Buck sitting there and saying, "You don't tell me that's not true. Tell me we haven't signed an agreement that says that we are liable to pay our share of the anchor projects regardless of the individual insurance recoveries that we get for the asset that's been damaged." Well, who would sign something like that? Well, it was signed, wasn't it, Vicky?
Not by us.
No. But you see, and that's the thing. Yanni and Jamie and Glenn and Jimmy, they were all on that council, and not one of them saw the cost share agreement before that day.
Yeah.
Not one of them.
Because I was there. The councillors deliberately voted to not have it come back in front of the council, and deliberately voted to do it in secret, not in open. And so that was a very clear choice. I know because I moved the amendment to try and get it in public and to try and get it coming back to council so that councillors could see it. So the councillors that voted for it can explain why they did that. But I just wanted to just make the point that one of the things that the Mayor has expressed previously, which she hasn't mentioned today, is that Cabinet go through a secret process to make decisions. We go through a local government process. So if you take the Metro Sports, there's been no public consultation or engagement because the Cabinet are making the final decisions, and we haven't been able to talk publicly about its scope, which I think is a real tragedy and a loss to the community.
Well, I mean, there has been a public process to a certain extent, but the conversations are happening at an officer level with the different codes that are going to be using the Metro Sports facility. But the Metro Sports facility replaces public assets like oh, now I'm having a mental block because my husband still beats me up about it. Centennial Pool, you know, and given that it replaces a public asset like that, you know, there has to be a degree of community involvement in you know, the community doesn't have to sign off on the decision, they just have to be involved. And I mean, nobody's expecting things to happen overnight. My experience is that as long as people know what the plan is, what the timeline is, people will accept delays from time to time because they know that they'll be told why. And I think that the frustration that's kind of hit the city over the last couple of weeks is that delays have been announced to a timeline they've never had any sort of kind of line of sight on, and they don't know why the delay is happening. So, you know, there has been, a sense of frustration around, you know, the fact that people come to this table to seek a delay on something, on one of the assets that they can't see as being delayed, but the things that we need the most are being delayed, you know. So anyway, we've got a long way to go.
So you need all of the 10 years.
But I think that what we do need is we do need the public to better understand the position that we're in, and you know, and I will have to accept that perhaps we haven't communicated that in as good a way as we can, but we will continue to try to do better.
Because I do think that understanding which part of the political processes are making the decisions. I mean, we do have an election coming up eventually, so.
Well,
you know,
but it's got nothing to do with that. What we actually need to do is to capture the moment that we have now.
Okay.
And the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act ends on the 19th of April 2016, and given that end point. That is less than a year away. So we are in a transition period, and it's during the transition that we as a city can ask to be part of a shared transition process and not an imposed transition process. And I think if we have that approach, then we will end up in a much better position as a city. And I think that the city will come with us once they understand that they're part of a shared process with a shared vision between central and local government. Nobody doesn't want the city to recover. No. Nobody.
That's right.
So we all want the same thing. We have different ways of getting there, and as Yanni said, the two processes haven't meshed very well, and we need a new process to take us forward. Yep.
Thank you.
So thank you. I didn't mean to give a speech, but
No, certainly it's a good part of the education process.
Thank you. So, Annette Marchand.